So welcome everybody to the first of the stream sessions this morning. There's probably going to be a few people, stragglers, come in as we go, but in the interest of trying to stay on schedule, we'll start on time. My name's Sandy Dunn, Managing Director of Assertivity, one of the premier partners for the conference, and I'm chairing this stream today. And it's my great privilege this morning to introduce Luke, our presenter for this session. So Luke Newby is the Work Management Team Lead for Chevron Australia. He's had 27 years of experience in maintenance and reliability, and that includes 14 years working at Chevron. He's held a variety of roles in operations, planning, scheduling and work management. But in his current role as Work Management Team Lead, he oversees Chevron's global processes, tools and EAM data, driving operational excellence and innovation. And today he's going to talk us about Chevron's maintenance scheduling journey, the past, the present and the future. Please join me in welcoming Luke.
Thanks, Sandy, for that introduction. Yeah, as you said, my name is Luke Newby. I'm the current Work Management Team Lead at Chevron. And today we'll take you on a bit of a journey into our past, just give you a bit of context of some of the things we've done in our history. Present, we'll focus heavily on our deployment of Prometheus Web Scheduler over the last couple of years, and future, just some of the things we're looking to do moving forward, both locally and globally. Before I start, Chevron is bad for acronyms, so I'm just going to call a few out because I'll slip back into Chevron mode and probably speak in acronyms a bit. Most common one I'll probably use is PG, Prometheus Group. Obviously we're deploying their product. EAM or CWMS in some businesses, Enterprise Asset Management. APM, Asset Performance Management. Our EAM system is a product called JD Edwards, commonly known JDE in Chevron speak. We will move to SAP in 2027. CWS, Committed Work Schedule. And the last one, I think you are all in this field, SME, Subject Matter Expert. Right, a quick disclaimer on behalf of the Prometheus Group. The following is intended to outline Prometheus Group's general product direction. It is intended for informational purposes only. It's not a commitment to deliver any material, code or functionality. The development, release and timing of any features and functionality described is the sole discretion of the Prometheus Group. Right, let's take a journey back into our past to understand where we're going. I need to set the scene, I suppose, around some of the things we've done previously in the work management space. So 2013, during our project phase of our Wheatstone and Gorgon facilities, leadership at the time made a selection on our legacy solution for scheduling. We moved into operations through 2015, 16, 17, and I'm guilty of this, adapting processes and tools as required as we started up. Concurrently, I suppose in 2017, the Digital Core project was announced for Chevron, which is established to align Chevron processes and software solutions across the globe. In the asset management space, that means EAM, APM, and scheduling, obviously, and also other functions are concurrently doing the similar kind of things, people like supply chain, HR, finance. So as that program is stood up, a series of workshops are held with subject matter experts from around the globe and to map out our processes and appraise software solutions. When it came to 2019, strategic decisions were made in the EAM, APM and scheduling space for Chevron, with SAP selected for EAM and APM and Prometheus Web Scheduler selected. From a scheduling standpoint, I'll talk to that a little more in the next slide around why we went with Prometheus Group and some of the functionalities we really needed to be successful. So we stepped forward a couple of years. The Chevron US refineries, which there are 5 of, sprinkled across the US, decide to early adopt Prometheus on their EAM, which is Maximo. Surprise, surprise, they had 5 different assets, scheduling in Excel, all differently. So they started their journey to standardisation and to move to a common process in a staged approach across those 5 refineries. They started down in the south with Pascagoula up to Salt Lake City, the 2 in California, in El Segundo and Richmond, and I'm missing one, Houston, Pasadena. Obviously, to make that happen, SMEs from the US were heavily involved in that. It was led by our global scheduling product owner, a guy by the name of Wes Eubanks, and we have a good working relationship with Wes, and it fed into our journey, which began in late 2022. We kicked that off at the time. I was the scheduling product owner, and with Wes, with the digital core group, and some additional other support from the IT function to start our journey. The first thing we had to do was air our dirty laundry, I suppose, and lay all our processes on every asset, get them down on paper, and map those out with all our SMEs. That fed into 2023, where we got into detailed design around what we wanted our process to be, try to align where we could to what the global process will be, call out those nuances that are unique to Australia. And then at that stage, we get into configuration and then iteratively doing testing in collaboration with Prometheus and our dedicated product owner here in the ABU. We decide to go with a staged approach across our four assets, similar to what the US refineries had done. So we step forward to 2024, and today we're doing new releases and deployments in a staged manner. We started with WA Oil, which is our smaller, oldest asset, which is going into retirement. Then we moved on to our Wheatstone platform, then to Wheatstone downstream facility, and now literally 4 weeks out from deploying on our biggest asset, which is Gorgon. So we're heavily in training mode there. We had to do that iteratively because as we get to those bigger assets, there's complexities that come with that, and there's functionality that we've asked of Prometheus to get into the product. So we've done it in that way. So I'll move to the next slide. So this will go a little bit more into selected, why the selection of Prometheus Web Scheduler has happened, and because it drives efficiencies and functionalities that we really need. The first one, bulk large-scale processing. What does that mean? Obviously, on our big assets, we have a lot of data. We work a 2-week committed work schedule around our rotational roster, and we build those schedules iteratively from 3 months out. So it's not uncommon, speaking from experience at Gorgon, to have a schedule, a committed work schedule that's in excess of 4,000 operation steps. Our legacy solution had some gaps with the ability to see that amount of data, where PG have definitely come to the table with a solution that works for us in that sense. An integrated end-to-end platform, what does that mean? This means breaking the love affair with Microsoft Excel. With multiple versions of stale data in spreadsheets that a maintenance coordinator's in version A and I'm in version D about to publish. So get into that single integrated platform, like it says there, to draft, review, publish, and execute our schedules in real time. Single user platform. So there's multiple aspects to building a schedule. So we need to, one, consider resource management, which is done in the shift up data and admin panel in Prometheus. Scheduler is what we most heavily use, but we use it to draft, to review, to publish, to execute. Saying that, we put config into the scheduler for the execution teams. We don't want execution coordinators and specialists playing with a schedule that a scheduler is developing for 2 weeks or 4 weeks down the path. That can cause chaos. So we've put in some really handy config to enable that. Analytics, that's more future state for us. Obviously, we're still on JDE. It's something we'll probably hold off until we do our SAP transition, but you never say never. But it's KPIs that really support our scheduling process. So that's things like schedule compliance, schedule stability, resource profiling, etc. And there are some other modules in there that we need to, or features that we'll look to integrate into our process as we learn and grow. We're still kind of learning to crawl and walk with Prometheus at the moment, but when we start to run, there's things like work order planner, weighted schedule priority, which I'll talk to later on, that we'll look to lean into. And the last one, improved work order management. I think this will be a common problem across the industry. Live scheduling establishes consistent work order management practices for end users. What does that mean? In the past, because of our 2-week rotational workforce and our legacy solution, it was very siloed in nature. So quite often you could, there's probably some bad work management practices where work orders get orphaned and left behind, and there's always the finger pointing, oh, it's the other crew, they didn't close their work orders. The beauty of the config with Prometheus is we've driven it, the config, the work order and the operation steps are in the schedule until you do 2 things. 1, you close it out in your EAM and it disappears off the schedule. Or 2, what we call break it out of the schedule. So you can't do it for a particular reason, whether it's weather, whether it's parts, whether it's resource availability. You have to select that work order and associated operations, break it out, remove it from the schedule. We had a couple of little learning experiences as that got stood up, but it only really happens once when a maintenance superintendent or a maintenance manager asks a couple of pointed questions like, why is that there? It's like, you're back to back, didn't do your job. So yeah, that's some of the positives and reasons why we went with the Prometheus tool. Next, we'll move on to Engage, and this talks a little bit more to the relationship between Chevron and Prometheus. Pretty straightforward, the principles and the outcome we're trying to achieve. Obviously, standard work processes and procedures, which gives us increased efficiency and transparency across the different phases of implementation. It pretty much speaks for itself. We're trying to do this as a corporation in Chevron with work management practices. Some practices locally and abroad we need to reflect on and improve and change. And we need to leverage our relationship with PG, who have experience across a wide customer base in this space. Second, global relationship between PG and Chevron, open feedback and constructive communication between all parties. Like I touched on earlier, this is a global solution and we need to be transparent with each other across the CVX, or Chevron, sorry, another acronym I didn't chuck in there, the Chevron scheduling community and the vendor to improve the solution locally and abroad. Number 3, change management from day one, continuous articulation of change impact to end users. This is the biggest win for mine for this project. I'll talk to it a little more in the next slide. It was identified by our IT department that, rolling out software tools in the past has probably been a gap for us. And they've engaged a change management consultant, which we use heavily now with all our IT deployments. They've been in from day one, helping, as an independent view, I suppose, helping lead those process discovery workshops, designing our new processes, which flows obviously into our process design and then config, and then some really great help with training, content development and communications out to the business, as well as gathering feedback. And that's steps into the last point, user-informed build functionality. User requirements are influencing the look and feel of the product. So we get a lot of feedback in training and hypercare, but it's targeted. We do pulse surveys in the training phase and post go live, and we work that feedback. Some is constructive, some is not constructive, let's just say. But we work that through our scheduling product owner to review and consolidate that with our SMEs. We pass that on to PG to consider for future releases on the roadmap In that phase two, obviously we have our global scheduling product owner to make sure we're not going too far off course from what the end state solution is when we move to SAP. Right, a little bit more on change management. So managed, these are the three phases that we see change management has assisted us. One, obviously assess, analyse the change, analyse the impact of the change. So like I said, that independent view, they help lead those process discovery workshops that can get quite emotive when two assets work in a different way, but having that independent view was really valuable for me to help facilitate that, and then obviously feed into our future state design. Onto the manage, that's more around, you know, training, content development that's going to be easy for our users to consume. We've tried a couple of different methods there. Happy to share that offline. Communicate, engage with our end users, not only about the tool, but about the process. And when you're rolling out a new process with maintenance folk, you need to explain the why behind the change. If you're able to do that, you meet less change resistance. And I'll talk to that in the next slide by some of our survey results, why we've seen that as a positive. And like I touched on earlier, yes, seeking that feedback. You've got to remain vulnerable and listen. So, like I said, we've got a lot of good feedback from our end users, and it is influencing the product for the future. Last is obviously anchoring that change, sustain and reflect. So gather that feedback through targeted surveys, both in training and go live, with some other key metrics to evaluate change effectiveness. So for an example, when we rolled out on our first asset, WA Oil, let's just say some of their practices are very much archaic, with the love affair with Excel and sheets that have been probably around for more than 10 years. Straight away, when they moved to this live schedule, we saw an uptick in schedule compliance and a downtrend in backlog, purely because of better work order management practices. And then planning for ongoing support. So within our business, we have a dedicated scheduling product owner that sits within my group. It's that focal point from everyone from P&S or from execution to come to that person as our focal point that feeds that back into our global scheduling product owner to ensure we're on the right track and improving that solution in conjunction with PG. So communicated, this is probably showing some of the effectiveness of that change management. So pulse surveys, like I said, done during the training phase and hypercare. This one here is more during the training phase. So just for context, there are a series of questions and you've got 5 possible answers. Strongly disagree, disagree, neutral, agree, and strongly agree. The target, so I'm told by our change management consultants and IT people, is we're targeting greater than neutral, which is greater than 60%. So the numbers up there kind of speak for themselves, but I'll go through them each one. 91%, they understand the value. So they understand by adopting a common solution, I'm seeing the value for the role in my organisation. 86, they feel prepared to transition to the tool. This is, we've communicated well, we've trained our organisation. The key learning for mine, we've dabbled in CBTs and online for people at the front line, face-to-face is the key. Get some glowing feedback from the 2 individuals that I've got on the assets supporting these deployments. That face-to-face is the key, and having that person around the corner that they can go and talk to really helps implement what we're trying to do. 98% understand the how. I understand the associated business processes and how I need to use the tool. So that touches on the point I was making earlier about the why. Where to me, that means we're explaining it well and people understand the why. 82% around believe leadership is committed to the use of Prometheus. This has been a leader-led change from day one. We've engaged the right leaders at the right time and to drive that down through their reports in the organisation. And the last one there is embracing the change, 82%. We're seeing the value of an integrated solution and a common process and how it can help everyone. Right, and into the present, just going to talk a little bit about some of the delivered or the product or the functionalities that have been delivered into the Web Scheduler product to enable our deployment. We've done this obviously in collaboration with PG heavily in the last couple of years. So the first one, schedule management practices during preparation and execution. This kind of functionality we put in place due to our legacy solution. Our legacy solution had some really strong points, particularly in the execution phase. So we implemented a couple of things. One, schedule preparations, so dedicated notes fields for groups, so production, operations, well, production, maintenance, planning, scheduling, all have their dedicated notes fields to give feedback, so revisions can be made in real time by the scheduler. Then if I move into the execution phase, I touched a bit on this earlier, that breakout functionality. We also have something what we call break-in functionality. Everyone would be afraid with that. You know, priority work comes in, we want to break that into the schedule and then break out the work that we can no longer do for whatever reason. The other part that we like to do for our execution teams, simple assignment of names to the work that's in the schedule, pretty straightforward, and the ability for them to have flex to move work around within their 2-week committed work schedule, and that's it. They're not going to step into the scheduler's realm and building CWS1. They just stay in their lane and either do the work or defer it, like I talked about earlier. Increased data management and processing ability. As I touched on earlier in the selection process, this was crucial for us. From experience at Gorgon, when I was a scheduler there, it was bloody frustrating that I couldn't see a whole schedule in the legacy solution. We had to do some work with our Chevron IT team to redesign our APIs in collaboration obviously with PG to get through those larger volumes. So now, today in that product, it's not that we have to do it often, but we can pull 20 to 30,000 operations in one variant if we need to. So it's a huge step change for us and been one of the really big wins and alleviates a lot of the frustrations of some of our scheduling group. And resource management. Management of resources in Web Scheduler to cater for the current shortfalls in our current legacy EAM system in JDE. So it's allowing more automated resource management practices with admin panel and shift up data, which has a positive impact for our schedulers and supervisors. I will say in this space, this is still a learning space for us, particularly as we go to our big assets. We're trialling a couple of different methodologies, and I can talk to specifics outside of here if you want to understand it, on our Wheatstone and Gorgon facilities around resource management. But ultimately, we're doing that to understand what is the best fit to influence the global solution when we move to SAP. Finally, this is my last slide, so it gives plenty of time for questions if you have them. So we'll step a little bit more into the future and learn and improve through deployment of Prometheus on Chevron Australia assets. We've listened and we have learned. So the first one, open and transparent dialogue. It's about our partnership internally with our Chevron product owner network and leveraging that network with our communications and relationship with Prometheus. Future Prometheus tool functionality. You see what I'm talking about there, auto leveling, auto scheduling, weighted schedule priority. For those that are familiar with Prometheus, you would know what that is. We're still learning to walk, so we're not going to start running just yet, but this for me is the biggest win, and my counterpart Knowles keeps pressuring me about when I'm going to get this stuff into the product. Building a schedule is based on logic, and that logic usually exists in the work order in some kind of coding. We utilise that kind of technology to take the click away from the scheduler so they can focus on optimising the schedule, building that rapport and relationships with production and maintenance to make sure the schedules SMIC So if we can utilise some of that cool functionality in the future, that's going to be really great. Build us a draft schedule and then we go away and optimise. So we're really excited about what that kind of functionality can bring us in the future, and obviously we'll work through our product owners and PG to make that a reality. And the last one, tool sustainment and iteration. We get regular point releases on a regular cadence from PG with new features that we've been asking for or waiting for, both locally with our JDE product and then influencing the global solution when we move to that in 2027. So that's all from me. Thanks to Mainstream, thanks to Prometheus, and thank you all for coming and listening. If you have any questions, feel free. I've still got 10 minutes left on my clock. Otherwise, I will be upstairs at the Knowledge Centre, which is, funnily enough, hosted by Prometheus. So yeah, feel free to hit me up or hit me up during the day. I'll be here all day and then this evening. Thanks very much.
Are there any questions for Luke? Yeah, well, I think just behind that.
Good question. Schedule compliance for integrity critical work is, Frank, correct me if I'm wrong, over 95%. Yeah, and then schedule compliance, our target is always 80. And we're usually are going around that, tracking around that. What was the second part of the question, sorry?
Where do you see the biggest gap?
Oh, I'll probably have to defer to the maintenance managers. But materials?
Yeah, I think our biggest gap would be resource availability. You have people at CWS plus 3, which is normally 4 weeks out from execution. We lock in resources, and it's based on how many people come to site. But you have people that get sick, families that get sick. So by the end, when we do go into execution, we run short of resources coming to site, which we then have to unschedule work or break work out. So that's our biggest gap at this stage. How do you solve it? I don't know. Because people get sick. So yeah, that's that one. Materials were an issue, but because of our process, we've streamlined our supply chain management process to our work order management process. So now we hardly ever have real issues with materials. Thank you.
Thanks, Nolsey. Thanks for stepping in. Ad lib.
Third question as well. Same question? Yep.
Yeah.
I'm curious how you capture the root causes of schedule compliance failures.
Failures, like what our breakout kind of.
Yeah, so wherever you missed a planned piece of work, how
Yep.
are you capturing the root cause of the miss for that?
Yeah, so that's in that.
Materials or
Yeah, great question. So we've done a lot of work in this space in the past, even on our legacy solution. That concept of breakout was kind of there, and we developed a suite of, let's say, 10 codes. Last year we did a bit of initiative with P&S and execution leadership to consolidate some of those and break some of those out. And one of the biggest ones was resource availability, not just for maintenance, but resource availability for production, because sometimes there's no production resources to isolate the equipment. So in a nutshell, we did that exercise. We aligned where we could to what the future state solution, so it will be governed when we move to SAP. It'll be very much a global suite of delay codes, as you will, or breakout codes, but we tried to align where we could there and give those layers of granularity where we needed to.
Yeah, the question, yeah.
Yeah, Luke, how long was it after your first deployment that you started to realise the value of the tool? So obviously you're saying that schedule compliance came up,
Yeah.
down, backlog management started to get into control.
Yep.
What was that period from when here's the tool and we're turning it on to start seeing those metrics?
Yeah, great question. It depends on the asset, but that for that example that I used for WA Oil, you saw that within the first 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Because, like I said, some of their practices were so archaic.
Yeah.
and they're forced into the tool, and the behaviours get institutionalised by the tool. It was pretty much instantaneous. Our LNG assets are a little bit more mature in the process, and used some of their functionality in the legacy solution. So I would say it's probably just been maintained at the level we try to keep for our LNG facilities. Great question. Yeah.
Was there, obviously, come from scheduling world as well, so
Yep.
live and breathe the fire that is scheduling. I guess what was the felt experience for scheduling teams in Chevron bringing the system in? We're probably going down a similar journey, and obviously the change curve as it is. How long before you guys, I guess, people started to go, actually, yep, I am seeing the benefit of this?
Yeah, really good question. And the penny kind of dropped for this, for our complex facilities in the last few weeks, to be honest. What I will say about the Prometheus solution, it's heavily process-based. So if you have a really solid process and the way you build variants is in a very structured manner, and you put your schedule together in a structured manner, it will bear fruit. And the light bulb moment, I suppose, was a couple of weeks ago. We were training our Gorgon schedulers, and believe it or not, our biggest facility has got the biggest love affair with Excel ever. And I'm guilty of probably building some of that spreadsheet, but yeah, it was great. So we got one of our most experienced schedulers from Wheatstone Downstream to dial into that training, and he'd only been using it for 2 weeks, and in, I reckon, 10 minutes of him taking ownership of the screen and just showing some of the Gorgon, let's say, change resistors, this is how I do it, and this is how I can do it. If you follow the process, this thing can work. It was like, okay, they've got it. So don't underestimate the change management piece and really mapping out those processes. I was chatting with Knowles earlier today. I'm seeing some really positive things in the Wheatstone scheduling group. So for those that know Prometheus, it's heavily driven on variants. What they've done is started building a numbered variant catalogue, which was basically the step-by-step way that they're going to build their schedule for the Wheatstone facility forever. So I'm not saying it's perfect yet, but that it's great for Knowles and his team to see that, you know, the group are buying in. They know that this is the common solution for us, and they're starting to come up with the solutions for how we want to use the product. Yeah.
How far in advance were your scheduled shutdowns, and then they started utilising Prometheus?
Yeah, great question. So for turnarounds, so Prometheus for us is just for core maintenance scheduling. For our big turnarounds, obviously we still use JDE, but they live in the Primavera world. What I will say on this, and the reason why is, you know, that they're massive projects, and so some of our other, let's call them smaller shutdowns, there is still a bit of a desire from the business to use Primavera in that space, and I understand that. It has some bells and whistles that people like. But I've put the challenge to the group, and the scheduling product owner put it on me. It's like, we have a campaign maintenance philosophy on our Gorgon facility. And he put it really simply. He said, look, it's just core maintenance spread in a really condensed bit of time. Why aren't they considering using PG? So that's something that we'll look to in the future, but one step at a time. Like I said, we're still walking. That's probably more when we're running and we've got some of those other bells and whistles like I talked about.
Yeah, I've got a couple of 3 questions over there.
Due to the full rollout of this, a significant change in the business.
Yeah.
Are there any other changes occurring? Did you encounter change fatigue? And had some really good uptake numbers there. What was your key to success, I guess, on a deeper level?
Yeah.
How to do multiple?
That's a great question. I probably could be up here for another 5 minutes if I started to answer that. So I'm a little time constrained, but I'll touch on it quickly and we can catch up outside. So yes, change fatigue is real. In big organisations, we're constantly evolving and changing technologies. We hope in the future, once we get our consolidated suite, that change burden changes, or lessens, I should say. But like I said, having probably the biggest thing for mine was having dedicated change management people that understand it, and how to communicate that to the workforce is the key. If it was just Luke standing up there and saying, this is PG, just do it, it wouldn't work. So that's the biggest lesson, but happy to talk outside around change fatigue in big business, and some of our maintenance managers and superintendents here would have some good stories too.
Okay, so unfortunately we're out of time. I'm sure there's a bunch of other questions, and I've got some. But if you want to speak with Luke, he'll be at the Knowledge Corner at lunchtime, so make a point of heading up there and having a chat with him. Please don't forget your evaluations for this session, so give Luke some feedback on how